This is the 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Appreciate all of you for locking us in, subscribing, and watching. If you haven't subscribed, do so right now because we'll be following the Niners and updating you on every step of this offseason, a pivotal one for San Francisco. As for what we're getting into on today's show, some loaded 49ers free agency rumors and buzz, and here's some of the topics that we're going to discuss on today's slate. We have the latest on Jimmy Garoppolo. Could the 49ers sign a stud cornerback from the Pittsburgh Steelers? Mike McGlinchey heading to this team who could pay him a lot of money. And could the 49ers bring back a familiar face along the defensive line? First, though, San Francisco. Subscribe for daily shows on the 49ers. We're approaching 80,000 subscribers. Let's honor the great, the GOAT, Jerry Rice. And subscribe today, as year-round, we're bringing you the most informative, entertaining coverage on the Niners. Let's begin with Jimmy Garoppolo. What's the latest on him? A couple of teams are said to be showing interest in Jimmy G, who have a lot of questions and needs at that quarterback spot. Now, some dominoes have to fall. What happens with Derek Carr? What happens with Aaron Rodgers? How do some players perform at the NFL scouting combine? Those dominoes start to fall, and those things fall in place, then that leads to maybe Jimmy Garoppolo going to a particular destination. But could it be the New York Jets as that destination? ESPN naming New York as the best team fit for Jimmy Garoppolo, and here's why. Yes, the Jets could trade for Green Bay quarterback Aaron Rodgers, and Derek Carr is visiting with them too, as both parties have interest, but if none of that comes together for New York, Garoppolo would immediately make the Jets better from an offensive perspective under new coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. They will likely feature the timing and rhythm throws along with play-action elements. Garoppolo completed more than 67% of his passes with 16 touchdown passes in his 11 games played this past season before suffering a foot injury. I'll also mention the Bucs as a fit for Garoppolo too if they can figure out the money. So obviously, if Derek Carr goes to the New York Jets, then Jimmy G won't go there. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be a team to show interest in Garoppolo to replace Tom Brady, and that would be funny because he was drafted to maybe replace Tom Brady with the New England Patriots. That didn't happen. He got traded to the Niners. Then if he goes actually to Tampa Bay, he might have the opportunity to replace Tom Brady. Now, obviously with the Jets, the Robert Saleh connection is there. He was the defensive coordinator for the Niners prior to DeMeco Ryans, and the organization makes sense for Garoppolo as a landing spot. They have a really good defense, have a pretty good run game once Breece Hall comes back from that knee injury. Some young wide receivers need to bulk up that offensive line, but they're ready to win right now. And Jimmy G can add that to that New York Jets culture, which is desperate to have a consistent winner. With that, let's ask you this. Predict the future of Garoppolo. What will his 2023 destination and beyond be? Where will he sign? Let us know down below in the comment section. Now, last year in NFL free agency, the 49ers made a splash by signing Charvarius Mooney-Ward from the Kansas City Chiefs to fulfill that number one cornerback spot. Could they be bringing in another very good cornerback by the name of Cam Sutton of the Pittsburgh Steelers? ESPN listed Sutton as a move that fits what he likes to do as a player and what he does well and what the 49ers have a need for in free agency. Sutton had a pretty good year, expected to be one of the most sought-after corners in NFL free agency behind a guy like James Bradbury. 10 pass breakups for Pittsburgh this year, 3 interceptions. He was targeted 71 times in 2022, gave up 36 grabs, and had a Pro Football Focus grade of 72.2, which is pretty solid. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, you signed Charvarius Mooney-Ward last year. I thought that Deommodore Lenoir filled in well. You drafted a guy like Samuel Womack. Can Emmanuel Mosley come back? I'd rather go Mosley, but here's why ESPN thinks Sutton makes a deal of sense. Sutton will have multiple suitors given his flexibility to play in the slot. Tennessee, Atlanta, Las Vegas all work here. But with the number of 49ers defensive backs heading into free agency and Sutton's ability to cover in man and find the ball in zone, the fit works in San Francisco with new defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, who, by the way, has a defensive backs background, very good at developing that position. Sutton posted 3 interceptions and 15 pass breakups for the Steelers in 2022, which were both career highs. So good timing for him to have a career year as he's set to hit free agency. What I want to go back to is that the 49ers paid big money to Mooney Ward. I liked what I saw in the development of Deommodore Lenoir. I thought that sometimes he got way too much flack. He played solid football. Samuel Womack in the preseason as a slot cornerback did play pretty well. Not sure what's going to happen with Jimmy Ward. Can you count on a guy like Ambry Thomas whose production slipped and injuries popped up this year? There's no question. The 49ers do have some questions at that cornerback position. Cam Sutton, a name to certainly monitor in the free agency market. Before we continue to move forward with our latest 49ers free agency rumors and news, today's show is sponsored by Cultivate. Head to wecultivate.us/chatsports to start saving money, but also to know where your products are coming from when you shop through Amazon. Cultivate, free browser extension that brings transparency to your Amazon shopping experience. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, or product origin and identifies local alternatives that support local community efforts while saving you money. With over 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers based in China, Cultivate offers a way to avoid trickery from these sellers and keep money in the U.S. economy. Cultivate offers alternatives that are on average 30% less expensive than Amazon without any additional costs, such as Amazon Prime. It can even identify local alternatives that you can pick up the same day. That's great if you need something fast. Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using the extension, and the more you get it, the more you earn in donations by increasing your level. In fact, Cultivate donates 51% of the revenue they make on your purchase. So what are you waiting for, Niner faithful? Go to wecultivate.us/chatsports and download Cultivate for free on your web browser. Let Cultivate bring transparency, savings, and community support to your Amazon shopping journey. Support the show. Download with our link. It's down in the comment section as well as in the description of this video. We continue to move forward with some free agency buzz pertaining to the Niners, with free agency coming up. March 13th is the date when teams can start to tamper. A couple days after that, these deals can be made official. Mike McGlinchey to Chicago. This is something that we talked about in the past here because that's a team with a lot of needs at that offensive line spot. They need to provide protection for Justin Fields, and Mike McGlinchey is also going to look to get paid. McGlinchey could get paid big-time dollars in free agency by a team like the Bears, who are desperate for a right tackle. And in pass protection, it's not like Mike McGlinchey was fantastic this year. He was solid. He was good. But as a run blocker, it's one of his strengths. He's actually pretty solid. And he is arguably the top, maybe second-best right tackle who's going to hit free agency this year. More than 1,000 snaps played. 561 of those were pass blocking snaps. He had 10 penalties. Some of those came at head-scratching times, no doubt. 6 sacks allowed, not great. 3 hits allowed with 27 total pressures, but again, very good as a run blocker and with Justin Fields in that Chicago Bears offense. The Bears do like to run the football with him in Fields, as well as some running backs. ESPN on McGlinchey to the Bears. McGlinchey didn't produce his best tape in pass protection last season, but he has the blocking traits at a premier position to upgrade a Bears offensive front that must do a better job of protecting quarterback Justin Fields. He wins with angles and the ability to get off the ball. And while McGlinchey's pass block win rate slipped to 89.6% this season, analytical nerds, you'll love that, his run block win rate of 81.2 ranked 5th overall in the NFL. It could be a big multi-year deal for McGlinchey. Bears general manager Ryan Poles would be adding a starting right tackle to address the subpar play of the Chicago offensive line, which gave up 58 sacks last year. And if the Bears can give him that deal, the 49ers simply will not be able to afford it. So what do you think? Should they re-sign him? And for they need him to come back, given some of the question marks along the Niners' offensive line. P for 2 pricey. Sound off with what you think down below. Could a familiar face return to the Niners in free agency? This is a move that I wouldn't hate. Arden Key. Remember him? He balled out in 2021 in the regular season as well as in the playoffs, and the Niners got him on that cheap deal. He came over from the Raiders where it looked as though he was going to be a bust. Former third-round pick out of Michigan. He ended up playing really well, and because of that, signed a nice little lucrative deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Arden Key going to be a free agent as well after signing a 1-year deal with the Jags. And I said all offseason, while Nick Bosa is the best pure pass rusher in the game, and he won Defensive Player of the Year this year. He was deserving of that because he was a menace. He caused destruction. He wore down a little bit toward the end of the year, and Nick Bosa needs some help to keep him fresh entering the final month and going into the playoffs. And I'd like, ideally, to see the Niners bring in an edge rusher who's a little bit more productive than Arden Key, but if you bring him in, as he has familiarity with this scheme, and you're able to save some money and bring in another guy, perhaps re-signing a player like Samson Ebukam, maybe you address some of the questions along that defensive line and at that edge spot opposite of Nick Bosa. Key in 2021, solid player. 6.5 sacks, 36 pressures, 14 hurries, 17 quarterback hits, and 5 tackles for loss. With the Niners, he was more of a rotational pass rusher. In 2022, he was signed by the Jags to be more of a frontline starter and didn't do a ton in the first half of the year with sack production. Really started to turn it on toward the end of the year, and in some of the biggest of games as the Jags had to fight for a playoff berth, he played well, brought some swagger to that defense, and in 2 playoff games, he showed up on the stat sheet as well as in the game on the game tape. 4.5 sacks in 2022 for him, 44 pressures, 28 hurries, 15 quarterback hits, and 5 tackles for loss. We already know, because he's played in this system, because Steve Wilks is going to run a similar one that the one DeMeco Ryans had employed, that he is a good scheme fit for this team, and you can probably get him at a pretty affordable price. Anywhere between $4 and $6 million would be my guess for Arden Key, considering the sack production went down a little bit this past year, but an interesting player nonetheless, and a guy who I'd like to see come back, partially because he'd bring that swagger back to this Niners defense. Before we get out of here, subscribe for daily shows on the San Francisco 49ers. And if you want to join me in the comments section, you can say it with me. San Francisco. If you're a diehard Niner fan, this is your spot for the best Niners coverage.